first episode of not a Muppet Show podcast. Don't let that name fool you. This is not a Muppet Show podcast. I'm Tori Schmidt, a Muppet person, fan, who knows, from a million different things. But I'm not important. What is important are my two guests today. Firstly, she is a multi-Muppet Twit Award nominee and a very frequent guest on my previous podcast, Live from Muppet Land. Please welcome Muppet Twit's biggest Jim Henson stan, Amy!
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Amy, how are you? Oh, thank you.
I am good.
And if you're in the Muppet fandom in any capacity, this next guest probably needs no introduction. He is the creator of the beloved Muppet fan site, toughpigs.com, and the co-founder of the excellent resource Muppet Wiki. But, as I'm sure as he would like me to say, more recently, more recently you can find him as the curator of the excellent social media account Muppet Pictures, and the host of the absolutely fantastic Miss Piggy podcast. Please welcome Hall of Famer Danny Horn.
Hooray! Thank you very much. That was, for needing no introduction, that was a delightful introduction. And thank you.
It's a very long introduction for no introduction. So, hi and welcome, like I said, to the first episode of my new weird podcast, Not a Muppet Show podcast. It's funny. So, for listeners at home, you might be wondering, what is this show? What is this show's goal? Well, in 2021, a little thing happened. And that thing being that the Muppet Show was finally added to Disney Plus. Yeah. Now, this was great for many reasons, but because of that, a few people decided to start Muppet Show Rewatch podcast, and by a few, I mean everybody and their mother. I counted at one point, and I think not even including Commitment, which you could argue is a Muppet Show Rewatch podcast. It's more than that, but you could argue it fits into that category. Not including Commitment, there were either 7 or 8 Muppet Show Rewatch podcasts, all started in February of March of 2021.
Oh, that's fun.
And if you're curious, Muppet Turgy is the only one still standing.
Oh, is that right?
Oh,
yeah. Wow. So good for Muppet Turgy, but there are so many Muppet Show Rewatch podcasts, and they're even like Commitment's at Fraggle Rock right now, and Fraggle Talk is doing a great job walking through Fraggle Rock. And so there's all these stuff for Fraggle Rock and the Muppet Show and some other Muppet shows, not the Muppet Show, Muppet shows about the Muppets. You all know what I mean. kind of get left by the wayside. And so that's why I decided to start not a Muppet Show podcast.
Aha.
And in this first season, we are talking about the first season of the 1996 classic Muppet series, Muppets Tonight. Now, before we get into the episode, something I like to talk about all my guests are kind of their general thoughts and general history with Muppets Tonight. And no offense, Amy, but I know Danny's history is a bit more interesting.
I do.
You do.
Muppets Tonight and I go way back, yeah.
Wow.
So first, Amy, I want to talk about you now. Amy, you're a little bit older than me. You were born in yes, you were. I'm very young. I'm 20.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Amy, if math does me math right, you were born in 95, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So you would have been 1 when this show came out. I assume you did not watch it while it was airing.
No, I did not. I was busy wondering, where's my mom? I'm crying.
I mean, you had your priorities in check. So I guess my question is, what is your history with Muppets Tonight?
It's actually one of the very few Muppet productions that I have not taken the time to sit through. So when you invited me to do this, I got very excited because I was like, this is my excuse.
Oh, I'm sorry that there was excitement.
Well, I know I've heard some people talk about it, so I was like, it would be an interesting one to watch.
Mm-hmm. And so is this the only episode of the show you've seen now, is my question?
Yes, but I have seen other skits here and there through over time.
Of course. We've all seen Kermit in the David Byrne suit.
Ugh. Yeah. So wonderful.
That's a musical number. Something this episode
the one musical number they ever really had committed to.
Yeah, more.
There are a few, but there are way fewer than there should be.
Well, that's something I'm definitely going to talk about, which I did not remember how few musical numbers. But anyway, not more importantly, because Amy, your history with the show is very important to me. Danny, I doubt you have any deep attachment, or it's not like you were covering Muppet News very, very closely in '96.
I do. That was when the first Muppet fan thing that I really did was I started a print zine called Muppet Zine back in 1992. I ran it for 5 years. We made 20 issues, and it was like, I don't even know if people can relate to this at all anymore, because it was actually like a physical thing that we had to staple and put in envelopes and mail them through the mail. Yeah, it was cool. And I really enjoyed doing it, and then stopped doing it in 1997 because then the internet existed, and I couldn't do it anymore. So there were, between like 92 and 97, the first real like big Muppet thing that I covered was the Muppet Christmas Carol, which people now think is really good, but at the time people did not at all in 1997.
And you have a great Tough Pigs article about this.
Yeah.
It's actually really fun. It's weird to see how that switched over time, but this is not a Muppet Christmas Carol podcast.
So 1992 happened, and then basically between 92 and 96, I was covering like, there's dinosaur stuff, and like every once in a while there's a Kermit doll, and stuff like that. And so then when 1996 happened, and it was announced both that Muppet Treasure Island was going to come out in February of 96, and Muppets Tonight was coming out in March. It's really like 3 weeks later. Basically, it was the most exciting thing that could happen. Like, this is the Muppet Renaissance. They're coming back. They're going to be in movies. They're going to be in TV shows. And then we watched it, and it's really mixed. I have a lot of affection for the show. There's a lot of good stuff, and you will see there's a lot of good stuff if you're actually going to rewatch. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of great characters that get introduced, but it's very mixed and very complicated, as we'll talk about.
This episode in particular, I think, is very complicated.
But
like, Amy, I know you don't have to watch the whole series again. I do. For this podcast. That's the plan. I'm recording episode 2 in 3 days from now. So like,
I'll probably still watch it all.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to get the context for these episodes of this podcast.
Exactly.
You know what? If people are forcing themselves to watch Muppet Babies for commitment, I think they can watch.
Are people doing that?
There's at least one guy. There's got to be somebody. I'm not.
I mean, I love the podcast. I love listening to them talking about Muppet Babies, but I don't feel the need to.
No, I don't.
To watch along.
I do have to say, I actually, and I know I sent you some links to this. I went back and I did read a little bit of issue 16 and 17 of Muppet Zine for oh God, what's the word?
Background.
No,
you're doing background research.
No, background research. Well, I don't know how my brain works.
Words are hard.
It's Monday.
Words are hard, and the one thing it's Monday.
So if I recall, like, issue 16 is one where I'm super excited because that stuff has just been announced, and I'm kind of like telling everybody, hey, this exciting thing is happening. And then 17.
Sorry.
And issue 17 is where we say, oh my God, the Muppets Tonight is out, and like get to talk about it. And then 18, I guess, was the Save Muppets Tonight letter writing campaign. Like that's how that went.
So 17 is the Save Muppets Tonight letter writing campaign. At least a little bit. I mean, I think that bleeds into 18. The 16 is your Muppet Treasure Island, like your full that's the Muppet Treasure Island. But the one funny thing that I really found was really funny in my research is this like long list of Muppets on TV.
Oh,
and there's just like so much Muppet stuff on TV, and you have no idea what's about to happen after. It's like,
because that was like, here's where Animal Jam is on, and here's where Mother Goose Stories is running, and like all of the And then like here's Muppet Show reruns are on like TBS or whatever.
If you're curious, Animal Jam is Mondays on Fox. Check your local listings. But one more before again we deep dive into this episode. I do have to say,
Yes.
Danny, I assume then you watched this episode live.
Oh yeah, with a group of people.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a little party.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Now, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit as the episode goes on. But like at the time, was it like too much hype in the room that like the Phantom Menace effect, where like people were just so happy to see a Star Wars thing that they didn't?
There was it was mixed. It was mixed for everybody.
Okay,
at the time.
Even at the time,
and a little like, oh dear, is this gonna work? Is this actually gonna work? But then there's also the theme song. So
the theme song, which I all right, we'll talk about. We're not quite there yet.
I know. But yes, no, we didn't see it necessarily through like super like rose-colored glasses. We didn't think like, oh, this is amazing. This is the one thing. It was like Johnny and Sal are really funny.
But they're not even in this episode.
I know. Yeah.
And so much of those new characters aren't, but we'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. Let's first talk about a little bit background information on this episode. This aired, as Danny said, on March 8th, 1996, which I believe, was about 3 weeks after Muppet Treasure Island. I want to talk brief about the director of this episode, Gary Halvorson, I believe is how you say his name. He just I don't know how familiar either of you with Gary's work, but he has he directed 10 of the episodes of Muppets Tonight. Mm. And I think there's 20 or 18, like there's he directed almost half the episodes of this show.
Yeah.
He also is the director of everybody's favorite Muppet movie, Elmo and Grouchland. Which we're not gonna hold that against him. And one more Muppet adjacent credit for 20 years he was the director of the telecast for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a great and he's also like I understand why he got the job for this because he's a sitcom guy. Friends, Roseanne, 2.5 Men.
Oh yeah.
Just like every sitcom under the sun. Now, again, I want to briefly talk, and this is probably the only episode I'm going to do this because the writers of Muppets Tonight are pretty consistent episode to episode. Mm-hmm. I do want to briefly talk about some of the writers. I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you know who Jim Lewis is. I don't need to tell you who Jim Lewis is. Legendary Muppet writer. Same thing with Kurt Thatcher. I don't need to say who Kurt Thatcher is.
Yeah,
we all love Kurt Thatcher. And or if you're a Muppet fan, or if you're really deep into the Marvel superhero movies, I don't need to tell you who Kurt Thatcher is. Oh, Danny, the way you're reaching over, I thought you were going to grab a Kurt Thatcher action figure or something that you had on your.
I'm just closing the curtain a little bit.
Oh, you're good. And then so the other writers in this episode, I do want to briefly mention Paul Flattery and Dick Ball. Thank you for saying that last name. They were both writers briefly for SCTV. Mm-hmm. And I believe Paul Flattery, is that Joe Flattery's brother? Or am I making? Yep, that is brother of Sid Sleaze himself.
I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's brother of Sid Sleaze himself, Joe Flattery, who recently passed away. So they wrote this episode along with Darren Henry, and Patrick Verone. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are folks at home. You are correct. 6 people wrote this,
which is a lot.
That's a lot of people.
And Blasucci, he was the executive producer and he was the head writer, and so he worked on SCTV as well as the Tracy Ullman Show and the Larry Sanders Show, and all 3 of those shows have one important thing in common: they weren't as good as people thought they were.
Wow.
They were kind of like respected. Like the Tracy Ullman Show was very respected at the time. I wouldn't say it was super hilarious, but it was what it was. And so he's, I think, bringing that vibe, unfortunately, to Muppets Tonight.
Well, yeah, because we all know how respected Muppets Tonight would go on.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it does have an Emmy. Kurt Thatcher brought it out at Muppet Fest. which you were there for.
I was.
So yeah, 6 people wrote this episode. This episode that starts with a bunch of Muppets in a boardroom.
Great.
Um,
Good choice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Get a whole bunch of Muppets on screen at the same time.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of Muppets, and we get the lights just flickering. A whole bunch of Muppets, and we get like a lot of classic Muppets in this scene. I recognized, I believe, Floyd and Janice, Swedish Chef, Lou Zealand. They're all here. I mean, none of them show up. Well, Lou Zealand shows up later, but like none of them show up in the episode. Or really, the Swedish Chef isn't in this show much. The Electric Mayhem aren't in this show much.
No, not at all.
But they're all in this scene, and it's all just fascinating. And I do like the boardroom opening, but I did find myself in this viewing. I watched this episode twice for this podcast. Once just to watch it, and once to take notes, which is kind of my plan for the rest of the series. I think that's a
good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. Who is this meeting for? Like what? Like it's a board meeting of sorts. Does this mean like this a TV studio? Which I think we should talk about that.
Yeah.
They
apparently are running like a whole network.
Yeah.
It's a whole network. It's not just you're right. Yeah, it's a whole TV network. It's not just a studio. They have a studio, but then it's like the Muppets have graduated from a vaudeville theater to an entire television channel, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the vibe.
It's interesting. The first thing I want to mention with this scene is, of course, that board. And thankfully, Muppet Wiki has a really great high res. I'm gonna shout out Muppet Wiki, not just because you're here, just because like it is helpful.
It's crucial. Yeah.
It's crucial. I'm gonna be using it every episode. It's not just because you're here, Danny. So I want to, obviously, some of the stuff they talk about in the show, X-Flies, Murphy Prawn. Did they say Murphy Prawn out loud? I think they do.
I think they do. Yeah.
But that one's funny. Just a few more I want to mention that I find a little humorous. Little Mouse on the Prairie. Mary Tyler Moore. Great. Just great.
Yeah, very cute.
I love puns like that.
There's a little Easter egg, Tales from the Vet, which would be in later episodes, actually is shown up here. And the one that just like I don't like because it sounds like the original name of the show could be a Muppet pun anyway, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Truffles.
Oh.
Yeah, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Actually, I said one more, but really the last one, because I'm looking at it and it's just so funny, is the little rat skulls. It's good. I don't know who wrote those, but
Rizzo.
Yeah. Well, I assume one of the writers.
I know. I'm just kidding.
That feels like a Jim Lewis joint.
It does. It feels very Jim Lewis. It's some great pun work, or as this episode calls puns, metaphors. We're gonna talk about that because that's weird too. And then of course what happens is the great Muppet thing of unpreparedness.
Oh yeah.
With no episode for tonight. There's like a gaping half-hour hole in the schedule. And
yes. This
is when we see so Kermit's kind of in charge here. And I remember, Danny, when I was reading Muppet Zine earlier today, you have an interview with Jim Lewis that I read a little bit, and something that you asked, I think I can read it verbatim here. I have it somewhere.
Basically, what the hell?
Yeah, where's Kermit?
Yeah.
Where's Kermit?
That is the question that literally everyone was asking at the time. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to say, this is a new show. It's not just the Muppet Show all over again. We're going to have like a new, cool, funny main character, Clifford, played by Kevin Clash. And he's going to be fun. And I think he is fun. Like, I like him a lot. I like Clifford a lot. I like the way that Kevin Clash plays him. So I understand what they were going for. And yet, every time anybody wrote about it, anytime anybody talked about it, when I talk to people, just like people in my life, like everyone would say, where is Kermit? Like, it turns out people really like Kermit the Frog.
I wonder why.
And And so it just didn't. I wish that Kermit could have been. I wish Kermit was the host. I would still want Clifford to be there and be a big part of it, but it appeared to be like something that just stuck in people's craw of like, where's Kermit? Why is Kermit not here?
And I don't. Again, it's been a while since I rewatched the show. Oh, I guess real quick. Kermit, he's not in every episode, or is he?
I don't recall.
I don't recall. Well, I'll find out.
He's at the very beginning of the theme song for everyone. He always is there saying, "Hey, here's the guest star, yay!"
Yeah, but that means
like
that Quango. That means Quango is technically in every episode.
That is true. Yes.
I realized, pausing our discussion real quick, I realized I didn't tell you my history with Muppets Tonight.
That's true.
Which is kind of important for this whole podcast. So when I was a kid in the early to mid 2010s, I loved watching Muppet stuff on YouTube during dinner. So when I would eat dinner sometimes, I would watch Muppet stuff, and usually it was the same old Muppet Classic Theater, Muppet Goes to the Movies. It'd be the same, because there was no streaming really. There was no Disney Plus or Netflix, or at least not with much Muppet stuff. And so I would just watch what was on YouTube over and over and over again. And that also means I watched pretty much every episode of Muppets Tonight multiple times in my childhood. So really, oddly enough, because of its availability on YouTube, Muppets Tonight was kind of my childhood Muppet Show. I watched it more than I would have watched The Muppet Show. And I did watch The Muppet Show. I had seasons 1, 2, 3 on DVD. I had what was available. And I did watch those a lot. But because Muppets Tonight was a lot easier, and also because my parents were divorced, and I would go from house to house, and sometimes my Muppet DVDs wouldn't be at Dad's or wouldn't be at Mom's.
Yeah.
And you know what was at both houses? YouTube. And so I kind of want to go looking at this show as someone who really did watch it as a kid and watch it as a lot and see if it holds up as an adult. Or adult. I mean, I'm 20, but like... and so far it does not. But back to the boardroom. We get Kermit giving his speech right from the script of Muppets from Space. I do think those two speeches are very similar to each other. So we go back into this boardroom with Kermit giving a great speech that, of course, leads to everybody running out of the room. Basically, what they're trying to do here, for those of you who did not watch the episode, which I would watch the episode before you listen to this episode. At least try to. Kermit's looking for somebody to host this new show, and Clifford's on the phone. Which Clifford. I do like. This is where we get introduced to Clifford, or I should say, this is where most American audiences would get introduced to Clifford. Clifford is, of course, played by Kevin Clash, probably best known for his characters such as Baby Sinclair from Dinosaurs, or, of course, Elmo. And Clifford first appeared in the Jim Henson Hour, and was also in, I believe, Muppet. Yeah, he was in Muppet Celebrate Jim Henson. But this was his first real big role. Yeah. And really, after Muppets Tonight, he doesn't really do much. He's in Muppets in Space a little bit. Yeah. And I believe he's in It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie for a little bit. But this is really, Muppets Tonight is Clifford's big thing. And he's very funny. Yeah. Clifford is a highlight of this show. The show has a lot of very bad jokes. And the humor does not land. At least this episode. And the humor doesn't always land. But Clifford, really just Kevin Clash's pronunciation of a lot of things, and his tone, and he has very good comedic timing. And it also helps a lot that Clifford is a top 10 Muppet design wise. He is a beautiful puppet. Absolutely amazing. I've heard him described as a catfish before. I don't know if that's the official word, but he's just one of those Muppets that's just a guy. But there is some catfish in his face for sure. Yeah. And he has such a flexible face. His face, you can do. Listeners can't see this, but I'm kind of using my hands. Like his eyes can pop out of his socket.
Yeah, that's
almost,
really the eye mechanism is fantastic. He can like really close his eyes and open his eyes.
Yeah.
He does it a lot, and it really works.
Yeah, Kevin Clash loves playing around with eyes, as we know. Whether it's a wooden dowel or an actual iMac, the iMac, like you said, Danny, he uses it absolutely amazingly. And then again, talking about great comedic timing, that feint.
Yeah, that's good.
And I know Clifford faints a few times throughout the series, and it's very good body movement. Anything else on this scene before we move on to the intro?
I just love that line Gonzo says. Oh no, that's terrible.
Oh yeah, okay. I wrote that in my script. Gonzo's pronunciation of okay.
I quote that all the time. I love that clip.
Yeah, that's the other thing we should talk about. Not so much in this episode, but Gonzo really shows up a lot in this show.
Yeah,
he's kind of the third main character outside of Clifford and Rizzo. We'll talk about Rizzo a little bit more later. Which is funny because Dave Goelz does a lot of not playing his characters in this episode.
right.
Which is interesting, and we'll talk about. And then we get a really great intro. Like, just an absolutely great theme song. That theme song...
It's one of the best of like just Muppet songs. I feel like it's up there. Although it is a fantastic song that nobody actually knows the lyrics to ever.
Yeah.
So
there's
go ahead. I think this is going to be an interesting story.
Oh, it's just like it's so much fun, and there's a line in there it's what Clifford says, like Muppets tonight, and then the whole group of Muppets sing you're gonna see something never seen, I think is that line. And then Clifford says tonight's the night, and then you're gonna hear nobody knows what that line is. Like literally no one. Like it was a thing. Like we asked people. We asked Kurt Thatcher. He had no idea.
Wow. That's funny. And Kurt would know he's one of the 6 lyricists on this song. I'm sorry.
So it's such a fun song that no one can actually sing.
It's great. And the music's by Richard Gibbs, who doesn't have a Muppet Wiki page, so I can't tell you anything about him. No, listen, you guys are still growing.
Yeah, no, we'll get there. Well, and it's like, and the Zydeco sound, which is so much fun in this song, is then carried through as the interstitial music through the whole thing. I feel like it's an excellent choice. It makes the show like have a particular feeling that's different from.
It is that you said interstitial music. I was going to call it a motif that plays throughout the whole thing. It gives this great vibe, and it's what I remember most about the show is this theme song and that little like that little little musical bits. That's what I remember the most strong. We'll probably talk about the intro on every episode because it's in every episode. But since this is the first time talking about it, I have a few notes. Poor Kermit getting trampled week after week.
Okay.
Lots of Muppets getting hurt in this episode specifically.
Yeah.
There's some Muppet.
But as I mentioned earlier, Quango is in this intro. Quango. But even more interesting to me is the addition of Mildred Huckstutter in every episode of Muppets Tonight. That is such a deep cut and I'm sure they just grabbed a random puppet off the rack or whatever, but like she's there. Mildred is in every episode of Muppets Tonight. And one more thing I have to mention about the opening. Randomly, there are pigs spinning plates in the background. Yes. Of the one shot. Any other thoughts on this amazing opening intro?
Nothing except I love it.
Now,
and that is, and actually, and that's I should say, like that's a thing. Around the same time was Muppet Classic Theater, and which I think is a really fun production. But the thing that Muppet Classic Theater really doesn't have is an opening number at all. They don't have like a theme song. You have to wait like all the way through that first story to get to any kind of song. And so it doesn't feel to me like a finished show. It feels like direct to video because it doesn't have like a cool theme song. And I think like for this one, like we'll talk about, like they keep cutting away from the musical numbers. But at least like they just nailed a theme song that's that's so strong.
nailed the theme song. Quick plug, if you want to hear a great podcast episode about Muppet Classic Theater on my old show, me and Sam Allen. No, we did Muppet Classic Theater. It was great. You gotta plug when you can, Danny.
Absolutely. No, you go.
Self promo.
So we get in and they're in the control room, and I really like there being a control room. It's a really nice analog from the backstage. Yeah. I love the set design of this show. The sets, this kind of like, I always called it like, it's not vaudeville, it's not Muppet Show. It kind of reminds me of like David Letterman or Conan O'Brien, like a late night talk show, but also Saturday Night Live, like that kind of TV variety show.
Yeah.
And as someone who's been to 30 Rock and has been in those studios occasionally, they do feel very similar to those actual like 30 Rock Studios and 8H and that kind of stuff. So I think they nailed the set design on this show. But also this control room is great, and there's so many just puppets. There's so many puppets in this shot, and there's so many puppets throughout. But the one thing I have to say is, what have they done to poor Droop?
I know.
I know. They dye him a slightly lighter shade of green, throw a vest on him, and call him Nigel. That's what they do to Droop. Nigel's another one of these new characters. Not a lot about Nigel. Well, he'll probably be talked about throughout this series, but it's just like, he gets loud. That's his. He gets loud and then he gets quiet. That's his bit.
Right. The two modes. Yeah.
Bit. And so then it's like, we're on the air, and then Clifford goes into a supply closet, which is a good enough joke.
Yeah.
I take issue. This is actually the first thing I take issue with.
Okay, please.
I would take issue now. They want us to love Clifford. They need us, in fact, to love Clifford immediately. Mm-hmm. And they do a lot of stuff throughout this first episode that kind of like knocks him down, which is weird. They trample Kermit, and then like Clifford gets kind of like squished behind a door, and he gets like punched at the end. And this is kind of the first thing that kind of like knocks him down as a character, is he's so scared that he goes in the supply closet. This is a thing that the 2015 sitcom did. Of the many, many, many things that sitcom did wrong, I think this was probably one of the worst, was that they didn't like making the show. Like the characters weren't like, hey, we're putting on a show together, this is fun. Like they were all just miserable because they're putting on a show. And the Muppets, like, they love putting on shows. It is literally what they are made for.
That is the Muppets.
Yeah. And so like things may go wrong and get exasperating, but like the host should not hate on the show. The host should not be complaining. You know, Kermit didn't like put stuff on and then go instantly backstage and just be like, man, that act sucks.
No, and like there's room for negativity, but negativity should not be the main. Emotion's not the right word, but negativity should not be the main ingredient.
Yeah. Especially around Clifford, who is trying to get to Kermit level.
Yeah.
And he's not at Kermit level yet. And maybe by the end of the series he will. I don't know. We'll
find out.
We'll find out. But we will find out what happens next. We see another top 10 puppet, the announcer, this weird bird-looking dude who we never really see anything of.
Just this. Yeah.
He's such a good puppet. He's such a good puppet. It's this nice, vibrant pink. It's this like bird creature. I need to pull it up because it's like,
it's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's beautiful. He's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best puppets, at least in this series. And so we get this little introduction. Clifford's out there, and he's like, our opening act is, and well, they don't have an opening act because they just started the show 5 minutes ago. And then we get Rizzo in his first real appearance in this episode. And in this series, Rizzo kind of takes the role Scooter had in the original Muppet Show. He is the stage manager, for lack of a better word. And Rizzo was all over this episode, and to my recollection of the original series, he's all over this show. This is Rizzo as the second main character. And I really liked Rizzo post Jim Henson's death. He really became this big thing. Wow. Amy or Danny, do you have any thoughts on like the emergence of Rizzo as a main character?
Amy?
Oh goodness, I'm like processing my thoughts. Because Rizzo was like at that era too, wasn't he like just starting to like become like really popular? Or
I mean, Rizzo was around in the 80s, but
yeah,
not
I'm trying to get
that
the
much.
timelines right in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
really Muppet Christmas Carol. It's
Yeah.
1992. What putting Gonzo and Rizzo together is just they are dynamite in Christmas Carol. It's the best thing about the movie. And so then they kind of continued with Gonzo and Rizzo as this great couple, putting them in like Muppet Classic Theater together and Muppet Treasure Island together. And then bringing Rizzo in here, I think it's super strong. Like he plays great off Clifford.
They're a great duo. I do have some problems with some stuff with Rizzo in this series. But that's not really Rizzo, it's just the writing.
Yeah.
But they play off with each other very well. And then we get Gonzo back in.
Hooray.
Oh, I should.
Very briefly, yeah.
Very briefly, but I do have to say he's wearing a certain shirt that I know. Danny, I know, like the younger generation, my generation, we really do think of, when we think of Gonzo, we think of that chili pepper shirt.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, that's the thing. I know. Am I right in saying there's like chili pepper shirt Gonzo is like, it's a kind of a different Gonzo in a little bit of a way.
Yeah. Yeah, he was before Chili Pepper, he was Sweater Vest Gonzo.
Sweater. I miss
Sweater Vest Gonzo is like Muppet Family Christmas and what was the other thing? Oh, and Jim Henson Hour was Sweater Vest Gonzo.
That's
and
right.
yeah, and so like Chili Pepper Shirt Gonzo is clearly like they're marking him as this is a weird character. It's kind of like on Doctor Who. I don't know if you know Doctor Who.
Amy does. Amy's nodding her head.
Okay, so Seventh Doctor, when they started, when like he's got an umbrella, a red umbrella with like, and it's a question mark looking umbrella, and then on his coat or on his lapels there's question marks, and he wears a sweater that has question marks, and it's like, I'm a mysterious character, and my entire costume is covered with question marks, like I'm a Riddler.
That's so true.
I love him as a doctor, but like that outfit's terrible. And Gonzo, it's similar. Like this is I am officially wild and crazy.
Yeah.
And this is my chili pepper shirt that proves it.
You know what's even crazier than a shirt with chili peppers? A bunch of dancing cheeses. Or I should say, they are the dancing cheeses. No. So then we get the dancing cheeses, which are technically our first musical number.
Yeah.
But calling this a musical number feels like cheating.
It's very short.
I should say there are some really great jokes here. I do like it's gonna knock your socks right out. Put them on. Your socks? That's a good joke. I laughed at that. The bad cheese puns were good.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, by the way, you know what? I'm sorry. We passed this. We passed Clifford saying, "I'm Clifford, your homie made of foamy."
Yes.
Yes.
I almost forgot about that.
That's a great line.
It's a great line. It's so dumb.
I had to pause it.
I love it. I love it so much.
Muppets have always been great at terrible puns. And they always will be great at terrible puns.
Oh.
And I love a good pun, so.
I love, or again, as they're called in this episode, metaphors.
But the cheese, this is a huge problem with this episode, and it's a huge problem for the show.
Because if this was the Muppet Show, we would have seen this whole number.
And it would have been good.
Yeah.
It would have been Gouda.
It would have been Gouda. It would have been better. Like I get the joke that they're doing, which is okay, like we're just throwing this together and Clifford's really struggling to put the show together, and that's the vibe that we want. But I think it shows like a lack of confidence in their variety show format. Like you have made this a variety show that has songs and dances in it. You keep cutting away from the acts to do backstage.
And I almost wonder, having so many sitcom people, having a director who did mostly sitcom stuff.
Yeah.
Because like the 90s were the decade of the sitcoms. The 70s were the decade of the variety show.
Yeah.
When the Muppet Show was on, you had all these other variety shows on surrounding it. And then in the 90s, SNL Like,
Yeah.
like maybe you could count like Letterman and O'Brien as like variety-esque, but like
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of traditional variety shows, and I actually wouldn't. I would call the Muppet Show a variety show. I don't know if I would call Muppets Tonight a variety show.
Yeah.
Like it is. I know what you're.
Scratches the surface.
Like it like variety show is the format that they're in. They just aren't doing it all the way. Like they're saying like this is a variety show. It's like the Muppet Show. We're gonna have songs. We're gonna have sketches. But they don't trust that people like songs. And the thing that's crazy to me, because people now say all the time, like if the Muppets, came back, couldn't possibly ever do the Muppet Show again, because people don't like variety shows anymore. People don't like sitting around watching people sing and dance. Except everyone loves people watching people sing and dance, which we do. Like there's in the world of like American Idol and The Masked Singer and Dancing with the Stars and all that stuff, people freaking love watching people sing and dance. And when they have done live shows, when they did like the Muppets Take the Bowl and the Muppets Take the O2, they just did it as the Muppet Show and they did it as a variety show, and you have these huge crowds and everybody thought it was great. People love singing and dancing. So I don't understand why in 1996 they were like so concerned that if they showed 2 minutes of a song that they had to like cut away from it and do some joke.
So what you're saying, Danny, I think the point of that rant is what you're saying is the Muppets need to be on The Masked Singer.
Didn't we have that? Wasn't Kermit on that?
They did that, yeah.
They did that 3 times technically, because they had that Sesame Street night and that Muppet.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, but no, I think you made some really great points.
Yeah.
In that, I just wish I feel like if the Dancing Cheeses were on the Muppet Show, it'd be a lot funnier. And we did have Dancing Cheese on the Muppet Show, and it was hysterical.
Yeah.
I just remember
they would have had a real song.
They would have had a real song. So anyway, then we get one of the worst jokes I've ever heard. We need a big star. Ike from the loading dock. You can't see it, but I just did a fake rim shot.
But
that's not a joke. That's just not a joke. It has the cadence of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the response to it is kind of funny. Where it says, no, you're bigger than that. He says, well, how about Ike's wife? She's huge.
It's funny a little bit, but also it plays into a lot of problems this episode has.
That just scratches the surface of all the women problems we're about to have.
The women and all the fat joke problems. But before we get into that little disturbing stuff, let's watch Muppets die. Shall we? Shall we watch the gruesome melting of several Muppets? That's what you want to see.
That made me so uneasy. I was like, poor cheese.
It's horrifying. It's the melting cheese. First of all, the puppetry effects are absolutely fantastic.
True.
Yeah.
The puppetry of that is absolutely fantastic. Or fun-do-tastic. But that was terrible. I'm sorry. But the melting cheese is absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
And they really focus in on one of them who just in like this very complicated little series of moves, just like the light goes out of its eyes.
Oh,
I know, like the one, like his eyes fold. I'm looking at the thing of like the one. He's like a little cylinder of cheese towards the front, and his eyes like go into the back of his head.
Yeah, it's bad.
We watched 6 Muppets die live on national television.
Yes, you did. I don't feel bad.
Honestly,
that doesn't hurt my feelings at all because they didn't.
No, they're fine.
Terrible number. Yeah.
And then because of it, we get Clifford saying the great line, "Waist deep and big funky," which is just great because Clifford's great. And then we get the reason I knew Danny Horn would want to be on this episode.
Great.
Miss Piggy comes bursting through the door again, hitting Clifford in the face, like you said. Danny, the most important question: thoughts on Piggy's outfit here?
Piggy's outfit. There is a problem, which is Piggy's eyes.
Okay,
if you've listened to the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, which is super interesting. We go super deep into all the Miss Pigginess. And episode 5 I have a couple of guys join me to get super into, basically to be like 3 gay piggy nuts to
That is
talk.
a great.
I
That
love
is
it.
one of the best episodes of a podcast I've ever heard. It is
I really
absolutely
love
fantastic.
It goes so deep into like Piggy's eyes and the curl of her ears and what's going on with her hair and just like everything that makes
And
a good piggy puppet or a bad piggy puppet.
I should also say it's also one of the gayest things I've ever heard, and that is like a
Super
huge.
is.
I'm compliment. That is a compliment. I mean that
I
as a
take it.
compliment.
I agree. I take it like that. Yeah. It's and I forget how long it is that what is it, like an hour and a half or something?
I can figure that out.
We recorded for like 100 hours and just had a wonderful time. We had to do 2 different sessions because we were having so much fun. And so especially after doing that episode, I'm now so sensitive to like good piggy puppets and bad piggy puppets. And Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets Tonight, she's got the same problem. It's worse in Treasure Island, but her eyes are tilted a little downward at the sides. It screws with the eye focus. She's not looking directly at you in the way that she should. And this piggy's snout is also too short. So she's fine, and most human beings looking at it who don't really analyze like the piggy puppet this much, I think probably notice it subliminally that she just doesn't quite look right.
I kind of was thinking that too. I'm not gonna lie. Something felt a little off when I was watching. I was like, something's off with Piggy.
Yeah.
So I feel that.
Yeah. It is something off with Piggy. I should mention, Muppet Wiki mentions this, and so I will briefly here. This shot of Miss Piggy, there's a picture of Scooter in the background, which is the first reference to Scooter after the death of Richard Hunt. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And Danny, you talk about this a little bit on your, again, if you have not listened to the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, I highly recommend it. And I'm not just saying that because Danny's on the show this week. It's truly a remarkable show. And I wrote about this here because I think this is a good example. Miss Piggy, the real star, versus Miss Piggy, who thinks she's a star. I kind of lean on the way that like the joke only works if everyone takes it seriously. Like you talk about this on your show, like. Yeah. It works because there's no like, oh, well, she's just a pig, which we get later in this very episode. But I don't know. I just the fake applause and the infomercial. It's just like
I gotta say, I like
the infomercial's funny.
I like the infomercial. Yeah, I like the infomercial, and I like her line. Don't laugh. It paid for the beach house.
I love that.
That's good. That's a great Piggy line.
It's such a good line.
I was like, I did it for a check.
Listen, that infomercial was her Jaws. That's a very deep cut for only a few people, but and I do like that after she says "Don't laugh," Rizzo laughs anyway. That's funny. Piggy is funny here occasionally. I should mention we get a lot of Piggy in this episode. And we get a decent amount of animal. This might be Frank Oz's biggest episode of Muppets Tonight. We talk about Piggy, we talk about animal, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Gonzo's in this a bunch, Kermit's in this bunch. Of the big 5 Muppets, where's the bear? He's not. He's Fozzie. Like that. I know you were talking about people were like, where's Kermit? Yeah. But also, where's Fozzie?
Yeah.
Like he's just not in this episode at all. And I understand this new Muppet show has a lot of new characters. Oh, I didn't even mention in the beginning, we saw Mr. Poodlepants and Bobo the Bear for the first time in that first opening scene. You gotta at least have Fozzie. And I get it, Frank was probably busy doing a lot of stuff with Animal and Piggy, but it's like... Yeah. So we then get Miss Piggy talking to Clifford and Rizzo because Clifford thinks that the show needs a big celebrity guest. And I do like the idea that the Muppets consider Miss Piggy big enough. Even if they're under a time crunch, even if this is like their only option, they do consider her big enough to be the celebrity guest. Yeah. That's funny and that's nice.
Yeah.
It's very cute, yeah.
And then we get this. I think Miss Piggy's outfit when she's talking to Clifford and Rizzo is quite good. If you want an outfit I absolutely hate, we can go to this infomercial.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what she's wearing, but it's just not.
It was a choice.
It was a choice.
Well, she's supposed to look terrible.
I
in
know.
that.
The
True.
hair,
Like,
the
the
hair.
hair
It made
extension.
sense.
It looks awful, but it's supposed to look awful. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I love the joke of the hair extensions being used as a pot scrubber. Like it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny.
That is funny, yeah.
And then she's got a funny turn when she brings in her nephews. I mean, nephews, whether the nephews are funny is another thing. But I think she's got a funny moment where she's saying, like, if you want me on the show, you got to take these two. And then they come in. She basically slams the door and goes, yes, because she doesn't have to deal with them anymore. Yep. I think that's a beautiful Piggy moment.
Classic Piggy.
It's a great Piggy moment. I also love that you briefly see her nose get caught in the door before it shuts.
Yes.
Which I noticed that on the second watch. But yeah, it's great Piggy. You mentioned them. Shall we talk about the two pigs in the room?
And Randy.
Andy and Randy.
Yeah.
I've talked about Andy and Randy before briefly because they're in Muppets Classic Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Andy and Randy.
No.
I wrote this in my notes verbatim. Andy and Randy may just be the dumbest characters in the English culture.
Yeah, there's a lot of ding dong characters in American sitcoms, but yeah, no.
And we're gonna have a deeper dive into Andy and Randy during my Josh Goodman episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the episode where they really are the focus.
Yeah.
But John Goodman. I don't know why I said Josh.
Yeah.
I knew what you mean.
But this starting them out with, like, basically, two jokes. Like, what are your names? Which one's Andy? Which one's Randy? And they say, this job is too hard. And he says, you cats are stupid. We're not cats. We're dogs. And it's just like...
And those are their two jokes.
Yeah. There's dumb. And then there's...
Andy and Randy.
Mentally ill. Like, it's...
Yeah,
it's weird. Like, there's something terribly wrong with them.
Podcast is too hard.
They were just kind of there to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't interested in them at all. I was just like, okay, they're there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of them for the whole series. I think they're in every episode. If not every episode, they're like a main focus of this show.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the...
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mean Girls quote. I had to throw that in.
Yeah,
Andy and Randy. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
I also think Clifford's last line, something's telling me I'm gonna regret hiring those two. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. Mm-hmm. You said that with the cadence of a joke.
That's
not a joke. And then nothing happens and we skip straight to a Statler and Waldorf thing.
Yeah.
No. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about Bay of Pigs Watch.
Oy.
I feel like every time we switched to a new scene, I have started out by saying, okay, so this is a huge problem. Bay of Pigs Watch.
The hugest problem now.
Bay of Pigs Watch is the hugest problem. This was the one. We're watching this in 1996.
Oof.
We're super excited. Me and my friends, Muppet fans, we're so into what's going on. We're not crazy about the cheese and whatever. And then Bay of Pigs Watch comes on.
And it starts with a joke that's really dumb, but I really love the pun David Hasselhoff. It's stupid. Yeah. I will fully admit David Hasselhoff is very stupid. But I like that pun for whatever reason. But I do not like Spamela Henderson. I think that one's a little forced. Maybe because both the first and last name are punned.
Get a pun.
I also just don't like Spamela Henderson.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is just that this is Leslie Carr Rudolph
in her first real Muppet performance,
and it's very funny. I think, like, she is funny.
Oh yeah, no disrespect.
She performs her. Yeah, no, she performs her in a funny way. There's actually, like, that really nice little moment where she's, like, filing her nails, and she looks up and then, like, looks back at her nail. Like, I think, like, puppet wise, she's doing it really well. But there are no other female characters.
Yeah.
On the show, there are no other, like, there's Miss Piggy, who's only there sometimes, and then there's like Bobo and Seymour and Pepe and Johnny and Sal and
what's her face in the Real World Muppets?
I'm
stretching. what's her face in Real World Muppet? Luce? No, not Darcy.
Why
Darcy.
Darcy? Like you were saying, in the control room, there's Muppets everywhere, running cameras, doing stuff. Why is there not a single female Muppet in there somewhere? Why isn't Leslie doing her job?
And that's a problem that follows the Muppets through their entire history. And it's
Oh yeah.
I wrote down in my notes, she's a girl. Isn't it funny? She has boobs. Get it? Girls has boobs and they're hot. Get it?
That was
literally
it.
That's the joke.
That is the joke.
I'm not laughing.
So basically, Bay of Pigs Watch is, for our listeners, it's a parody of Baywatch. One of the many. That's something interesting about Muppets Tonight. It's very heavy on the parodies of TV shows of the time. We'll get into Pigs in Space, Deep Dish 9, EIEOR,
NYPD Green.
NYPD Green, Tales from the Vet. Like, there's so many more of these parodies. We're back on the Muppet Show. It was really just, for the most part, Pigs in Space, which wasn't really one show. Vet's Hospital, which wasn't really one show.
Yeah.
And Bear on Patrol, which wasn't really one show. They were genre parodies, not like...
Right. Yeah.
But it's just... So it's this thing, and basically, David Hasselhoff, who could have been Link Hogthrob, like, just...
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I don't know if they would have recast Link at this period.
Yeah, they're not really bringing the...
No. Not a lot of Muppet shows. Not a lot of Muppets that we know in this show. And so he's, like, singing a song in mock Hawaiian for Andy and Randy, and then Pamela Henderson comes up and she takes her top off and she's got a bikini on and she's like, "Is this the right work outfit?" And it's like,
they just
the dumb guy. They just go humana. Like, they literally
they
go.
Don't even have it. It's not even a joke. They don't even have a joke. And then they do the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation,
which I
is gold.
I literally Googled, is tricking somebody into giving you mouth-to-mouth sexual assault. I Googled that. I could not get a good answer. But
yes,
the answer is obviously
yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
I was thinking that, yeah. I was like, no.
Tricking. Also, that's something a little kid does. Like, that's something, like, I think about The Sandlot, right? I don't know if you've seen the movie The Sandlot.
Yeah.
But that's right out of The Sandlot, which, hot take, I don't like The Sandlot, but that's a different...
They do that joke in Superman the movie in 1978.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a real cute, like, mouth-to-mouth stuff. It's exactly the same joke.
See, again, get Danny Horn here for the superhero stuff. I didn't even mention your superheroes every day. But it's just a very tired joke, and it's just not funny. Like, I'm calling it a joke because that's what it has the cadence of.
Right.
And that's what it's supposed to be, but it's not funny. It's just not funny.
And then Piggy is, and then there's sort of like Piggy insult.
Yeah, I do have to say the Piggy swimming and then saying, "Ah, shark," and the shark going, "Ah, pig," is a little funny. It's a bit of a joke. It's not a great joke, but I'm grasping at straws for this scene, Danny.
No, I know. And then Pamela's like, "Oh, that baby humpback is being chased by sharks."
And I wrote down, get it? They called Miss Piggy a humpback because she's fat. Get it? Because being fat is funny. Get it?
This skit to me is just like, it really shows the show's age. It's like the skit to show and be like, this is of its era, and it shouldn't have been like this, but unfortunately that era was full of humor, not actual humor like that.
It's of its era, both because of the poorly aged humor, but also because it's a Baywatch parody.
That too.
But this just to confirm, like in 1996, we didn't think it was funny either.
Yeah,
it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable in 1996.
Yeah,
in exactly the same way that it is for us now. Like maybe in the 70s, I think it wouldn't have been, but by 96, this was old fashioned.
And yet it still was being written though, which is crazy.
I know. Yeah.
You say that, but also I know there's certain sectors of the entertainment industry where this joke would be written today and people would find it funny. Like, that's just the truth. Moving on, one last note. They say the word bimbo in this scene.
They do.
Which huge push for that word in the Muppet world in '96.
Good point.
I know
That was
because
just
I've
on
been
their minds. Yeah.
on their minds. I've been recently. I think a great companion to this podcast is probably the most recent season of Moving Right Along, which is currently airing while we're recording this, which is talking about Muppets Treasure Island, which is very different from this, like we were saying earlier, but also came out a couple weeks away. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's if you want to know what the Muppets were doing in '96 before this, I would listen to that. So then we get the new version of Statler and Waldorf for this
Yeah.
series, which I don't know about you two, but I actually really like this direction. Like,
Putting them in a nursing home.
yeah, well, not just not necessarily the nursing home, but like having them watch it on TV and not
Yeah.
having them
Yeah.
like in the studio. Which is just it's funny because I know later on, if memory serves me, they're like on the beach and at
Yeah.
a bar and
On a golf course.
on a golf course on ski slopes. Like they do funny things with it
Yeah.
as the show goes on. These first couple episodes, with them just in the nursing home, I could take or leave. But like, it sets up what I think is one of the funny, maybe not funnier, but one of the more interesting parts of the series. And I should state Waldorf here. He's not played by Dave Goelz in this scene.
Is he not?
He's played by Kevin Clash.
Oh, all right.
Interesting.
And I actually, so that's on the Muppet Wiki page, but I actually could definitely hear it because if you hear it, I like this Waldorf sounds like the Waldorf from the Sex and Violence special. Like it sounds a little older and a little more raspy, and I just thought that was interesting. We get Clifford making a pig joke, Rizzo makes a pig joke, and Clifford says, or one of them makes a pig joke, and one of them says, "Hey, don't use up all the pig metaphors this early." That's not a metaphor. That's a pun. The word you're looking for is pun.
I wasn't sure. You've mentioned that, and I wasn't sure what you were talking about. But now I totally, yeah, you're right.
They say pig metaphors. The word you're looking for is pun, my friend.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes and 23 seconds into the episode, and even more with commercials, because this aired on commercials TV.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm not quite sure where this would be in the with commercials, what the timestamp would be. But without commercials, 10 minutes and 23 seconds into the episode, we finally get our guest star, Michelle Pfeiffer Manowitz. Michelle Pfeiffer!
Who was delightful.
Yeah. Great. She is great. They make some jokes about her, but she herself is great. Michelle Pfeiffer, of course, famous actress, probably best known at this point in her career for playing Catwoman in Batman Returns. Just a great actor. Anybody have any thoughts on Michelle Pfeiffer, like in this episode? Or
I adore her. I love her. I love everything she does. I think, did she have an Oscar by this point? She got an Oscar for Fabulous. I believe for Fabulous Baker Boys.
Good for Michelle Pfeiffer.
I actually just watched Scarface, which was her first big film role, and she's so cool in it. And she's just always been like, she's gorgeous and super interesting. She doesn't like coast on her looks at all. She's always doing something interesting. Her like with her face, with her. I just think she's great. I really love her.
So, no acting, no Oscars for Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, is that right?
She lost that to Brenda Flicker in My Left Foot.
Fine. Very well.
But nominated 3 times, which is. Oh wait, did she? No, I'm sorry. I think I looked at the wrong category. She lost to Jessica Tandy in Driving Miss Daisy, but she does have a Golden Globe, so you were for that role. So,
she got something.
She got something. Of course, we all know Michelle Pfeiffer from her groundbreaking role in Grease 2, and now we've got that joke out of the way.
She's having a good time. Like that's a thing that I like about her. She is very happy to be working with the Muppets.
Yeah,
I mean, who wouldn't? Well, I'd say who wouldn't, but we know from. I would say Michelle Pfeiffer was a last-minute addition to this episode.
Is that right?
Yes, to quote Muppet Wiki, a different celebrity guest was originally booked instead of Pfeiffer, but a few days before shooting, they backed out. This is according to the to Patrick Kottner's podcast, George Lucas talk show, because they did that big Muppet Muppets Tonight, where they watched all the episodes and did.
Yeah.
They never revealed who that other guest star was, but there was somebody else, and I want to bring this up
Yeah.
now. You know what I'm talking about, Danny. There was somebody else who was supposed to appear in the cold open of this very episode. Henry Kissinger.
Oh, really? Was that was the thing?
Yes.
They were not going to get Henry Kissinger.
No, they tried. They kept trying. Oh, that was so funny. That's
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Henry Kissinger was almost in the Muppet movie, or they wanted him in the Muppet movie.
He was in the script.
Right, he was in the script.
Yeah, in the script, before they knew exactly like who they were going to get as celebrity guests, they wrote Henry Kissinger in kind of as this placeholder celebrity guest.
And again, to bring up
war criminal Henry
Kissinger, who of course his book Diplomacy is of course in Muppet Treasure Island. It would have been really. It would be funny, but it'd also be kind of terrifying if Henry Kissinger was in a Muppet thing. Because like when I did my in memoriam for the award show last January, I didn't include him, but if he was in a Muppet thing, I might have had to. So then we get the classic case of my not mistaken identity, but like, you told this person this thing. I told this person this thing. It's a classic sitcom plot. Because Clifford hires Michelle Pfeiffer. Kermit brings Michelle Pfeiffer in, I should say. And Clifford's like, great, you can be our celebrity guest star. And Rizzo's like, you just told Miss Piggy that 5 minutes ago. And I checked. It was exactly 5 minutes ago. Or close enough to 5 minutes ago. If you look at that's on YouTube. On the airing, it would have been a little different. But there's a lot of Michelle Pfeiffer's hot jokes.
Yeah, it's more like leering at women thing.
Yeah.
We're going to see that. That's going to come up.
Drop Dead Gorgeous. You can add another Muppet to our body count for this episode. A Muppet dies because Michelle Pfeiffer's in the room. When Michelle Pfeiffer leaves, she hits Kermit on the back of the neck.
Oh, does she?
She does. She like hits him on the back of the neck, and I wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at it, but I wasn't looking at it fully. And so I thought for a second she hit him on the ass. For a second, I thought, did Michelle Pfeiffer just hit Kermit on the ass? Like I thought it was the neck, which I don't know if it is.
You have to bend down. You have to get pretty low in order to hit a Muppet on the ass.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they mentioned the supply cabinet again, which is it's a callback. It should have been a runner. You could have brought it up a third time, and then it would have been a runner, and it would have been great.
Yeah.
And so then Clifford brings out Michelle Pfeiffer, and they have this little moment where she's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to work with the Muppets." And Clifford's like, "What are you talking about? You've worked with us before." And we get this. I don't know what to call this sketch, but they do this a few times where like before they were famous almost. They do the one, I forget who, but they do like a Kermit the Frog Mickey Mouse Club parody. I forget which episode that's on, but that'll come up. I know they do.
That's Cindy Crawford.
It is Cindy, thank you. It's Cindy Crawford. I know they do Harry Met Sally with Miss Piggy as Sally.
Crystal, yeah.
They're in the Billy Crystal episode. And I don't know if there's an actual name for this type of sketch, but like
I think they're cute. Like it's a cute idea.
It's cute. It's cute. Muppet Matchup is cute. On paper, well, it's cute on paper. This format
is a cute idea.
This actual
thing is a freaking mess.
70s words, organic food, fondue. Get it? Yeah. So much of this is just like, here's funny stuff we said in the 70s.
Yeah.
Which is just its own lazy joke. I hate the like almost like doo-wop jockey voice Steve puts on Kermit here. Like it's not giving 70s game show, it's giving something else. So the three guests on this game show are Bunsen.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's another thing I should mention. Bunsen in this segment played by Bill Beretta.
Oh, is he?
Interesting.
Yeah, if you listen to it, you can tell it's like if you listen, it's Bill.
Yeah.
It's Bill. That's what Muppet Wiki is saying. It's weird that Dave was not here. Like he was here to play Gonzo, and Gonzo's in this episode a decent amount, but he just wasn't on the set when they did Statler and Waldorf for this.
Yeah. He's one of Andy and Randy, isn't he?
And he's one of Andy and Randy. Yeah. I couldn't tell you which. I could not tell you which.
Not sure.
But so Bunsen is one, and Bunsen keeps saying, we're gonna go to the lab and take skin cells from our bippies. Do either of you know what a bippy is?
I do.
It's a butt.
I do.
It's a
No,
butt.
it's not. It's from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In.
Oh, okay.
Do you know this? This is okay. So this is the thing. Nobody in 1996, nobody knew this either.
So I googled it, and I should say Urban Dictionary gave me butt. So that's why.
That's a newer thing. There was a show called Laugh-In. It was a comedy variety show, 1968 to 1973. I looked this up. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Okay.
But
You could have lied and said you did.
Oh yeah, no, I know. No, but like I was, you bet your sweet Bippy was a catchphrase. It was like a thing that they said a lot. And
when they were coming out of the lockers.
And it caught on, and because basically like it's a thing that sort of sounds like it's penis, but it's not. And so people just thought that was hilarious. They sold merchandise. They sold like you could buy a Bippy. So it was very, very funny. If it was like 1970, it was very funny. But for a 1996 audience, it's old, it's not funny, and it's especially not funny 3 times.
It's a runner. It's a rule of threes. It's Bippy.
Not correct.
The one that is just not a joke to me is, wow, my rude ring's turning mellow yellow. So is my Bippy, which is the sting at the end of that thing. So that's Bunsen. Beaker, I do like Beaker in this where he says something and she's offended. Like,
that's also a reference, by the way. She says that's not funny, that's sick. It's the name of a National Lampoon comedy album from 1977.
I, as a 20-year-old in 2024, would not get that reference. Would a person in 96 have gotten?
No. And no, absolutely not. It wasn't funny then. It's not funny now. There's a lot in this that's like we're doing 70s stuff. We're like, and Michelle Pfeiffer's like, that would be far out, Kermit. Let's boogie down with our bad selves. And it's this question that's like, okay, for me as an audience member, where do I laugh? What is funny about this for me?
Yeah.
Question that is not answered.
It's not very. The one funny thing is like the hairdo on Beaker and Bunsen. I got a bit of a chuckle out.
I do love the afro on Beaker.
Beaker's afro is nice, and then of course it joke. Like, this is another note I wrote. It ends with, of course, animal chasing women. Funny. That's women. I think Joe Hennis, who will be a guest on this podcast much later on, he wrote an article on Chuck Pigs about Animal and the problem with Animal, and I think this is this is a great case of why there is that problem with Animal. This woman. I get why it was funny at some point, but it's like, and there is a cadence to a joke there, and on paper I get it, but it just doesn't work, especially surrounded with all the other misogyny we've been dealing with in this episode.
Yeah.
If it was just this, then woman can work. Yeah, but this is like the 4th time so far out of 10. I think that we're gonna have. Yeah, it's not good.
So then we finally leave that scene, and they randomly cut to the back room. They're just like talking, and then like Nigel's doing his thing where yelling, talking. Like, that's Nigel's joke, like I've said.
Yep.
And he's like, does anybody want some schnitzel? And then Animal's just like, schnitzel. I'm laughing because it's not a joke. Like, it's just
what is that?
It doesn't make any sense. So then there's a little scene in the hallway where Rizzo and Clifford are kind of talking about keeping Michelle and Piggy away from each other so they don't find out they're both booked as the guest, which is not the responsible thing. The responsible thing is just to tell them you made a mistake, and
but
then we wouldn't have a plot for the episode.
Exactly.
And so we do get some great puppetry, just some great physical comedy of Rizzo flying up in the air.
Yeah.
Muppet yeeting is almost always funny. As we'll talk about later, there's a great example of Muppet yeeting later in this episode. And then we get a joke that's so dumb, but it just works so well for me. And that is the great moments of Elvis history.
Yeah.
It is so dumb. It is. It is one of the dumbest things they've ever done, but I love it. It is so stupid. It just hits. It just hits,
I'm with you there. I loved that one. And maybe it's just because like my mom's a huge Elvis person, so like I grew up with Elvis. So combine that with like the history joke. I was just cracking up.
Yeah.
And those puppets are so cute. The Elvis ones.
The Elvis puppets are great.
I
My
want one.
mom.
I just really want to hug one. It's so cute.
Oh, yeah.
I can't help it.
Listen. I'm not here to talk about Elvis, but my grandma loved Elvis, so my mom loves Elvis. So obviously there was Elvis in the house growing up.
Relatable.
Yeah. And I just think it's really funny. I just think the history jokes and the I discovered electricity. Great news! Now we can use the electric guitars. Like it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
And I like that they're declaring independence from the king, and they're like, no, wait, but I'm the king. Like that's. Yeah, they just it's basically just like we do funny Elvis impressions, and we're gonna do 3 of them at the same time.
It's super simple, but
it really works. Yeah,
it really works. Before we move on, I want to shout out 2 reused puppets, JP Grouse and George the Janitor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Old Muppet Show friends. Ozzy's not here, but different voice George is. Okay, so now, if we were watching this in the UK, this is where the UK spot would be. I could not find the UK spot for this episode. Did either of you happen to be able to track it down before we?
No, I forgot. I forgot they did those.
I forgot Muppets Tonight had UK spots too. I checked several copies on YouTube, and I could not find the UK spot anywhere. It's a Swiftwits. Danny, do you remember Swiftwits?
No, because I wasn't in the UK.
They did this a couple times. I think during the regular show too. It was like a guy, and it would be a really quick game show, and a big mean Carl would eat a cute thing at the end. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
So this is where that would be. I don't know if it's lost media. You have a transcript of it on the wiki, so I assume it's
there's copies of Muppets Tonight that are around.
By the way, shout out for having the transcript to this episode because it's also very helpful to. So that's where Swiftwits would be, but instead we finally see Michelle Pfeiffer run into Miss Piggy with the time-honored tradition of Miss Piggy not knowing who famous people are.
Yeah.
Which shows up a little bit. As I say that now, I can only think of one other time where that happened. On the DVD behind the scenes of Muppets 2011, there's this point where she doesn't know who Emily Blunt is, and she thinks Emily Blunt is her actual assistant. Yeah. I'm sure there's other times they've done this joke that I'm just not thinking of. But I do. It's a really dumb joke.
But I'm not responsible for hair extensions or for the pots.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's good. Yeah. That callback was good. I liked the Barney Fife joke. I think that was dumb enough. I like Michelle Pfeiffer works well with Miss Piggy. Like they have good chemistry and they have good comedic timing with each other.
So this scene is great, and we're just gonna say that, and then we're gonna move on, right?
Danny,
there's no way that this becomes disappointing and sad.
Michelle Pfeiffer's taking a robot.
Oh man,
it's
that's the line, or maybe just Michelle, but like,
it's like we had a great scene going. Why you gotta do that?
Yeah. Leering at women, number 12.
I'll read it here. Michelle's taking a robot. A bunch of male Muppets gather in excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
And then Miss Piggy's taking her robe off. He and the male Muppets scatter. Piggy reveals a country western outfit, which we'll talk about that later we'll talk about that in a minute because that joke makes no sense. Actually, we can just talk about that now. That joke makes no sense.
Yeah, I was confused.
She's just got a country. It's not a joke.
Yeah, I was like, what was the point of
that?
So
much. I remember. I think I was on Hubble, and it was like Muppets Tonight has 2 jokes. Hubba woman or Miss Piggy's fat, and here's the 2 jokes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too much about this. It's sad.
I mean, we're gonna just keep getting to the same place with it.
Every single episode of this show has this problem, and every single episode of this podcast, we will be talking about it. So it's like, I like that there's just a random horse next to Clifford and Rizzo in that one shot. Again, grasping at straws, but like, I think throwing Muppets across a room is always going to be funny.
Yes, it's a good joke.
Yeah.
And it's a good joke, and just the sound Kevin Clash makes, and like just the shot of like, I'm rewatching it right now. Clifford, like the way he gets dragged across so lifelessly, it's just really well done.
And I like, and then Kermit saying, "Hey, did you get to talk to Miss Piggy?" Oh, I guess he did.
Yeah,
It's good. Another solid Piggy moment.
it's good. And then I can tell you this because I've got it up. 18 minutes into this 22-minute episode, we get our first real musical number.
Hooray.
And I think that we can barely even call this a musical number.
But it's a good one though.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's they sing 2 songs from The Sound of Music, and don't worry, I'm not gonna go full Muppeturgy on any of these songs. If I ever have those guys on, maybe that'll happen. But yeah, so it's just kind of this nice back and forth between. And this is the highlight of the episode. I think that's fair to say. At least for me, I think it's just pretty funny going back and forth. One thing about the set, I know I was complimenting the general set earlier, but this set's also pretty nice.
Yeah,
It's giving me similar vibes to the Carrots of Penzance set from the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
It's nice. I have a really bad joke written in my notes. Would you like to hear the bad joke?
Please.
Always.
Yeah,
Talking about they're playing Maria. Maria, there are 2 people playing Maria. Miss Piggy is their name. Michelle Pfeiffer is winning the game. Maria. Yeah, Danny's giving me a look like, what have I signed up for?
I'm a theater girl. I loved that.
Oh, that was good. I'm down.
Thank you. So that was great. So they kind of have this nice back and forth, and Andy, Randy, New Zealand, and somebody else, just a random Muppet, are playing children. And there's some Andy and Randy, like they don't really add anything to this scene. Like they have some jokes. I'm doing quotations for the listeners. But like this is where they're at their least offensible. Like this is where they're at their most tolerable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
At least in
they're
this
supposed
episode.
to be dumb kids. Like it works because they're kind of like getting dragged back and forth between one and the other. It's cute.
It's cute. And so then we get Miss Piggy 6 Foo Foo on Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes.
And then Michelle Pfeiffer, 6 Animal, and of course Animal goes straight to Michelle Pfeiffer. You don't have to talk about that joke again.
Yep.
But then Animal gets sicked on Foo Foo. Animal says, "Doggy, doggy, doggy, dinner." Takes a bite of Foo Foo, throws him across the room, and then we don't see Foo Foo after this. So I'm just gonna say Foo Foo fucking dies.
Yeah.
Foo Foo dies in this episode, guys.
Poor Foo Foo.
Poor Foo Foo.
He hits his head with an audible clang on metal railing.
And Miss Piggy seems visibly distraught.
Yeah, as she should be.
As she should be, yeah. I was just
1996, watching this, it was like this major thing of like, do you think that was funny or sad?
Yeah.
I came down on funny. I think it's funny. But it is a disturbing moment for sure.
I'm interested. I don't know if when you do more Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, if you'll go into this, but I'm interested to see where Foo Foo fits into the Miss Piggy canon. And if that has anything to say about Miss Piggy. But anyway, so then Miss Piggy is like so mad she can't even think of words and asks Clifford and Kermit for T words.
Tiny tush is a weird thing for her to start with.
Yeah.
You tiny tush turtle. It's funny enough. Like it.
Sorry.
And then we end with a bang. Miss Piggy gets a cannon somehow.
Literally,
it's the Muppets. Oh, did somebody say bang? Oh. And so yeah, Miss Piggy fires a cannonball. No confirmed deaths from that. I think that guy that got hit in the old folks home was fine.
He was probably fine. Yeah, if Foo Foo's fine, then that guy's fine.
Just injured.
Yeah,
he'll be fine.
And so, speaking of people getting injured, we come to the end of another one, and Clifford gets punched. Like you were saying, again, we're kicking our host down while he's still in the pilot.
Yeah, but it's a cute it's a cute moment of like Piggy and Michelle saying like, "Oh, I know it wasn't their fault."
Yeah, I did like them coming together at the end. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's his own damn fault.
It's like there's a bunch of Miss Piggy stuff in here. You know, there's stuff that I don't think works. Throwing a beach ball in her face just isn't funny. The humpback whale isn't really funny. But there's a lot of like solid Piggy material in this, and so that's something. Like this is a good show. I'm gonna say
it's on the line of being a good show. There's like I said. I like the Elvises. I like this last number with Michelle and Piggy. There are some individual jokes that are really funny. There's a decent setup to this. but so many of the jokes fall flat. The one
The
of the
women
like
stuff.
longest,
Yeah.
the women stuff. It's just
Mhm.
there's so
Yeah.
much misogyny.
It is
and
relentless. Yeah.
Yeah.
and to a lesser extent, what we would now call fat phobia, right? Like to a lesser
Oh,
extent, that shows up a lot too. But before we wrap up with final thoughts for this episode, Rizzo eats a bunch of guys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we eat the cheese.
Again, so much death
Crazy.
and murder.
I just wanted a joke.
So before we wrap up our final thoughts, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, and by that I mean nobody's, because this is the first time we're doing it. Wait, who? Welcome to Wait, Who? The segment in each episode where we talk about one of the new characters from Muppets Tonight. I say new with a little bit of a quotation because we will talk about some characters who've been around a little bit before this. Like, I will eventually talk about Andy and Randy, who've technically been around before, and like Polly Lobster and Clueless Morgan, who we didn't see in this episode, who for some reason come back. This week, because she shows up so much and because she's introduced, I thought I'd give you two the pleasure of talking about Spamela Hamderson.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have much more to say because she's in this episode so much, and she'll appear throughout the rest of the series. She has, to my knowledge, a pretty big role in the Sandra Bullock episode, which I remember that being my favorite as a kid. She would not really show up much after Muppets Tonight. I wonder why.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
As many of these characters stick around for at least a couple years. Many of these characters show up at least like Muppets from Space, and It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie.
Yeah.
Spamela, not so much. I mean, she makes the puppet makes appearances occasionally. She's in, of all things, From the Balcony.
Yep.
She
was in like the pilot film for the Muppets for the sitcom.
Right. Didn't they use the puppet in place of
Denise. Yeah, she was Denise in the.
I never really that.
Yeah, and then they would eventually make a new Denise. She in the Muppets Snow White comic book, she plays Snow White.
We don't have any female characters.
We don't. And that's still a problem. Like, we just don't. It's like, we're starting to get a little better. I think Penny Waxman is a great step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see if she returns and whatever the Muppets do next, though. Like, that's the...
True.
Yeah, probably not.
Speaking of Leslie...
The whole show would just have been way more improved if there had been any women involved.
If we had women on the writing, you're telling me we had 6 people on this writing this episode, and they were all dudes.
Yeah, and you can tell because it's relentlessly woman stuff.
They were all, and I think they were all white dudes as well, unless I'm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, of course they're. Yeah.
Painfully obvious that it was 6 white dudes.
6 white dudes. I should say one more thing. There's some really great concept art of Spamela Hamderson that if you look at the Muppet Wiki page, sketched by Ed Eich, I believe that's how you say his name. That makes her look like a really good action movie star. And one more thing about Spamela. Initially not performed by Leslie. Leslie would only do the voice for the first, and I think maybe in this episode. Right. Yeah. So Kevin Clash in the first couple appearances actually performed the puppet with Leslie, because Leslie was still very new to puppeteering. I believe this was, if not one of her first puppet things. Any thoughts on Spamela Hamderson, everybody's favorite? Listen, some of the characters in Muppets Tonight are fun. We didn't meet any of them here, but spoilers, I like Johnny and Sal.
Johnny and Sal are great.
Yeah.
Johnny and Sal are great. I've had a bit of a soft spot for Dr. Phil.
Pepe.
Yeah. Love Pepe.
But then also, it's like, I'm not looking forward to the Howard Tubman stuff.
You got to be in the right space for Howard Tubman.
You really do.
Yeah. I do have one thing.
About Spamela, yes.
About Spamela, yeah. There's a little clip that I believe it's still on YouTube of Pamela Anderson, the real actress, with Miss Piggy on Hollywood Squares. And they're they're in the same thing. It's like a 1 minute kind of like bloopers thing. Pamela Anderson mentions introduces herself as I'm Spamela Hamderson.
Oh.
And nobody laughs because nobody knows what she's talking about, but she says I'm proud of that. That's there was a Muppet that was named after me. He liked it, which is nice.
Aww.
That's nice. One more thing. My question for you two is: do you think there were ever any merch of Pamela Henderson?
I feel like this is a trick question.
So technically, there are 3. She appears in 2 Muppet calendars, and
Oh yeah,
You
she's
have it?
facility.
Wow.
The
there's
trading card?
there was this company. There's this game called Top Triumphs.
Yeah.
That's like really popular in the UK, and for some reason I have the Muppet set, and one of them is I'll put this in the notes, Pamela Henderson. So I own one of the few Pamela Henderson
That's so cool.
merch.
Is she in the character encyclopedia?
I
forget.
can.
She is not.
She's not okay.
She is
So
not.
she's not in the character encyclopedia. I know Bill like Jowls is in the character encyclopedia. I think.
Yeah.
Which is
So I guess by the time, when did the character encyclopedia come out? It was
Muppets Most Wanted. Was what it was
2014.
promoting
Yeah.
for, so yeah.
So by then, people
We
were
weren't.
ashamed of her.
We're ashamed. I'm sure Craig brought her up, and Disney was like, "Eh."
They're like, ah.
So before we go, any last thoughts on this episode? Let's start with Amy.
Overall, it's like, as I was watching it, I was like, this is rough, but it's not like the worst thing I've ever watched, but also so dated.
So now, Amy, do you still have desire to watch the rest of this series after this first episode?
As a Muppet fanatic, yes, because I'm one of those people where I'm like, I'm gonna watch all the Muppet content, whether it's good or bad, because I'm just one of those people. I just have to get around to watching it all. Life happens, and there's a couple of things I haven't seen fully yet.
I mean, so many of the things you've watched are because I forced you to watch it on my podcasts.
We usually got good ones, though, like good topics.
I mean, John Denver and the Muppets of Christmas Together, that's debatable. Like, some people like that, some people don't. Muppets from Space is usually pretty... Yeah, Danny just gave a thumbs up. Thumbs down, sorry.
Muppets from Space, but I'm not like, OMG, best Muppet movie ever. Like, no, but no. I don't hate it.
We talked about Haunted Mansion. Most people like Haunted Mansion.
Because I'm a Haunted Mansion girly also, so I was
Now, Danny, any final thoughts on this episode?
Well, for one thing, I assume that after we're done talking about this, then we're going to talk about Aliens in the Family.
Oh yeah,
because that would be historically accurate. If folks don't know, Aliens in the Family, if Amy doesn't know, Aliens in the Family is a Henson Company sitcom that actually premiered. It's on this TGIF Friday night. It was like Muppets Tonight at 8:00, and then Aliens in the Family at 8:30. And Aliens in the Family was terrible. It was not a good sitcom at all. It was about, what is it? Like a group of aliens. It's been so long.
In the family.
Aliens. Oh, it's like the mom is a human and dad is an alien.
No, I
think is a costume character, and then the kids are all aliens. Is this not correct?
Aliens in the...
Oh no! Oh, it's the other way around. It's the other way around.
Yeah, the dad. No,
dad is human.
Like both the mom and because the mom is not like a...
She's an alien as well. She's not a puppet, but like she has something weird going on her head. But then the 3 of the kids are puppet creatures. It was not funny.
If you're curious, Muppets Tonight got through with 22 episodes. Aliens in the Family was done after 8.
Yes. And I'm not sure even all of those aired.
I assume they didn't.
Probably not. Yeah.
So that unfortunately was like, that was also part of the downer vibe around Muppets Tonight, was that like, oh, and then there's this other Henson thing. Like and a thing that I think contributed to the show not getting picked up again. It was a terrible like lead out. Nobody was going to stick around for Aliens in the Family. If it had been like Perfect Strangers or whatever was...
What? Nobody wants to see... no one wants to see the adventures of Snizzy and...
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was named Snizzy.
I think the character, Bobit, the little baby. Bobit was it was sort of like Stewie Griffin character who wanted to take over the world.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when it's funny when it's Stewie Griffin.
It's also funny that like this show, so nobody cares about it that the human characters don't even have pages on Muppet Wiki. Anyway. So, but like, do you have, besides the lead out of Aliens in the Family, which after this show there will be an Aliens in the Family podcast.
Fantastic.
That's a joke. I mean, if somebody wants to do that, I hope someone does that. Can you find those episodes anywhere?
Right. I feel like if you were serious about this, you would do a 1 hour. You would do both halves.
Danny, what are you doing after this? Come on, we can.
I'm gonna watch Aliens and Family once again. That'll be awesome.
That's our homework.
No, but my other thought is just it's so hard to say. It's a good show. It's a good show on the whole, in my opinion.
I'll find out.
Yeah, if you watch the whole thing, there's some real lows and just like the relentless woman stuff. I don't think that they keep that up the way that they did in this episode.
I know there's that.
Cindy Crawford, maybe.
Well, the one I'm thinking is that Cindy, where like, oh, let me play with those balloons. Like that's the one I'm thinking where.
Oh, is that the Cindy Crawford?
I think that's got to be Cindy Crawford.
If you turn that off, if you take that out. There really is, like, there's a lot of funny stuff. And I think, like, there was a bunch of funny Piggy stuff. Theme song's awesome. You know, they're doing some things right on this show. It's just they were not mature enough for one thing, to, like, get away from the women stuff. And it needed to have Kermit. It's just like that would have made it a lot more likely that people would have actually watched the show. Is people just said, like, I'm not watching it. Like, where's Kermit?
I could feel the emptiness of Kermit being so much in the episode.
Yeah,
I'm with you there. Yeah.
So it's not. I wouldn't say this is like a worst of the Muppets situation. That's
a different podcast.
Yeah, exactly. There's but like I don't feel like Joe's gonna get near Muppets tonight, just because like there is a lot that's good about it.
Trust me, if he was, I probably wouldn't be doing this. But as for me, this episode really does feel like the first episode. Like they've got some growing pains, they got some problems.
Oh, yeah.
But also, so much of what I think about when I think Muppets Tonight is not here. So many characters I think of. So Bobo, Johnny and Sal, Pepe and Seymour.
Yep.
You know, like there's so many stuff that when I think Muppets Tonight, it's just not here yet. And so when that stuff starts to get introduced, when we get to see Mr. Callahan's hand and that kind of stuff, I'll see how I feel. But as for now, this episode, I'm not going to say the whole show is bad yet, because I have not. I watched it as a kid, but I'm still to rewatch. This episode was a bad episode. Like, in my opinion, there's a lot of good. Overall, I think it's a bad episode. There's a lot of good stuff in it. Again, I love the Elvises. I love the dynamic between Pfeiffer and Piggy. But man, that band Pig Watch.
Pig Watch. I know.
Oof.
It's hard. And actually, I think Muppet Mashup is worse. That's probably the worst. That's the worst. It's like the least funny.
Yeah. It wasn't funny.
Mentioning the Bippy 3 times, like just a reference that literally nobody knew.
It's a funny word, I guess. I'm not trying.
Not really.
But anyway.
Great.
Great segue. Danny, Amy, thank you again so much for appearing this. We'll start with Amy. If you would like to be found anywhere, where would you come on, plug? We're gonna plug. Amy, plug what you want to plug.
Follow me on Twitter at Princess Muppet and vote for me in this year's Muppet Twit Awards because I haven't won them yet.
No. First off, who knows if there's gonna be a fourth? Second off, no, I'm kidding. I'm probably gonna have to
promote. So
yeah, you said yeah, I did.
I saw the opportunity.
You took it. Danny, plug what you want to plug, my friend.
All right, excellent. The Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, super fun podcast. Gets real deep, and the goal of it is if you kind of like Miss Piggy, then this podcast is designed to make you really like Miss Piggy. Goes deep into the history and finds all kinds of fun and delightful things about her. Plus, I have cool interviews with Bonnie Erickson, who originally made the Piggy puppet, Callista Hendrickson, who is Piggy's fashion designer, Craig Shemin, and Brian J. Jones. So there's all kinds of fun stuff. You can find that on the Tough Pigs Muppet Fan podcast feed. So first season just ended with 11. I did 11 episodes first season, and now they're going to put on something else. And then I'll be back for a second season of the Piggy podcast.
And I should say your Bonnie Erickson episode, I loved, because Bonnie Erickson is also a bit of a hometown hero here because she designed our baseball mascot, the Philly Fanatic.
Oh, are you in Philadelphia? I didn't realize.
I'm in Philadelphia, yeah.
I'm a Philly boy too.
Hey, let's go.
And then the other thing that I should mention is the Muppet Pictures feed, which is on Twitter and on Facebook at Muppet Pictures. Every day I post 2 pictures of the Muppets from all over their history. Like it's all Muppet Show characters and Muppet Tonight characters. And you will enjoy it. And if you are not on Twitter anymore, then if you want to just go to Twitter every once in a while and just check the Muppet Pictures feed, it will like just come for that. And check out what I posted.
It's on Facebook, right?
And it's on Facebook as well. Yep.
As for me, you can follow my personal account at spellthings, because I misspell things a lot. You can also find me on Twitter at Muppet No if you want to keep up to all the crazy wacky stuff I can doing. If you Google MuppetTwit.wordpress.com, you can find the Muppet Twitter Awards and the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame website. By the time this is out, everybody knows who this class of Hall of Famers is, but when we're recording this, Amy doesn't. Danny does, but Amy doesn't.
I'm out of the know.
You can also probably find me in the sandwich section of your local grocery store. I want to thank again the incomparable Danny Horn and the amazing Amy for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. This is really fun, especially being on the premiere. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, yeah.
Join us next time on Not a Muppet Show podcast, where I talk with fan artist Christy O and Muppet Wiki extraordinaire Gavry as we talk about the Garth Brooks episode of Muppets Tonight. See you then!